YouTube and Airmeet, and this is our second session of the day on Sunday, November 8th, day number 6 of the iSpirit Healthathon 2020. This session is titled Wearables, IoT, in the New Age of Personalized Healthcare. I'm really excited to welcome our two speakers today. We have with us Mr. Vishal Gondal, who is the founder of GOQii. He's also the founder of India Games and has been really active in the gaming and entertainment space. You probably know and have played many of the games which his studio has produced. But in this context, he is talking to us as the founder of GOQii, which is a wearables company, one of the leaders in the Indian wearable space. And we have Mr. Pradeep Kumar, who's a senior director and global head of R&D, program management, and architecture at Philips. He also comes with a strong technology background, having worked at various technology companies like Texas Instruments, TP Vision, and Trident Microsystems. So welcome, Pradeep, and welcome, Vishal. Thank you both so much for being here. It's really a pleasure. I'd like to kind of kick off the conversation by jumping straight in and asking Vishal. So, Vishal, you just started GOQii fairly recently. Could you tell us why you started it? Why is now the time? And what exactly is GOQii?
So Goki was actually launched in 2014. So this is our sixth year of operation. And the idea behind Goki really was that just devices, just apps, or just data is not going to help people change their lifestyle. So the idea really, right from the beginning in the case of Goki, was to combine data with actual advice and actionable advice with what we call services and create a preventive healthcare ecosystem. So in 2014, we launched a wearable device, which was a basic wearable. It could only track, say, steps, etc., which was connected to a health coach. But today, in 2020, our platform has evolved to not only have wearables which can measure, basic steps, but we've gone to clinical grade data like SpO2, blood pressure, oxygen. But this entire data in itself is not our business. What our business model is, taking this data, connecting people to a coach or a doctor who would give them the specific advice. But then we use this data to underwrite insurance. So we work with various insurance partners who then look at this data, of course, with the approval of the consumer, where if you are making a lot of progress on your health, you can potentially get lower insurances. So what I really believe is that if you look at the preventive or the healthcare space in general, the traditional healthcare space is what I call it's a sick care model where they are waiting for people to get sick. Then you go to the doctor and the doctor is expected to diagnose you and then give you a fix to the symptoms you are showing. But in a lot of cases, and especially India is the capital of metabolic syndromes like diabetes, heart disease, cholesterol, blood pressure, everything. For these syndromes, finally people have to change their diet. They need to modify their eating habits, exercising, stress. All of those things are the long term cure or long term management of these diseases. And that is where wearables play a big role because the data required for you to change is what is constantly provided by a wearable. And before I end, I want to make one very interesting point. Typically, a person, if you ask how many times they check their blood pressure, and in most cases, people don't even check their blood pressure once a year, and that too in some offices they do it. But once a person comes on a Goki device, our same consumer checks their blood pressure 9 times a week. That's the average. So suddenly, from getting zero or one data point a year, you are going to 900 data points a year. So the bottom line over here is that this data, combining with AI and ML, and then combining with a gamification layer, can actually get massive results. And that's really what Goki and the journey around Goki has been, to empower, motivate, and guide people to make changes with data coming in from wearables.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. Lots to unpack there, and we will dig into all of it. First, I'd like to ask Pradeep. So, Pradeep Phillips is a name which everybody recognizes. Could you tell us a little bit about your role there, as well as the portfolio that Philips has in the space of IoT and wearables?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me, Ariman. It's a pleasure for me to be on this platform.
Thank you.
I come from the personal health cluster of Philips. Philips, as you all might know, is completely a health systems company. We transformed into this a few years back, right? So, but in the India marketplace, still people recognize some as a lighting company, as a consumer electronics one, right? But we are making the transformation, right? So that transformation won't happen overnight. I am from the personal health part, so I am not into the big irons like the MRs or the CTs or the X-rays. I am from the IoT group within the personal health part, so I am called PH Digital, Personal Health Digital. So we operate in a very similar space that Vishal spoke about. So it's a very interesting journey we are here at Philips. Of course, Vishal operates in a very different kind of setting, a startup of his own, versus we operate in a corporate, which brings in its own challenges and advantages as well. So I'm excited to share our journey along with you guys. We operate primarily in five spaces today. Um be it male grooming, all the grooming devices that a male can use, female beauty, oral health care, mother and child care, and domestic appliances. So our aim as a team here, we are a team of around 190 people based out of Bangalore. We build digital solutions in all these spaces. We want to bring in value through IoT, value through data that we collect through IoT, and then build meaningful algorithms based on the data we have collected through AI and ML. And whole aim is to ensure that we have a healthy set of people who should not end up in a hospital, right? So preventive health is our whole aim and whole end of it.
Okay, very
Yeah.
interesting. And over the last few years, I think the penetration of IoT devices and wearables has increased a lot, and several factors have been behind that. The cost of these devices is coming down, quality is going up. There's more and more things you can do with data, leveraging technologies like machine learning, etc. And I was keen to ask the two of you, can each of you tell me, some of the wins that we've already seen, or some interesting benefits that we've already been able to see for your customers from the use of these devices, just to get a sense of, what are some wins that already are here. Vishal, maybe you can start.
So clearly, in the case of Goki, since right from the beginning, we connected uh, our entire experience to outcomes.
Hmm.
Because we are a subscription model, our business is not about just giving you a device and forgetting it and hoping you will buy the next one. Our device actually is a Trojan horse. Device comes to you, but then it unlocks our services, and these services are designed to improve your health conditions, and that is what eventually is going to make you continue and stick to our platform. So right from the DNA of our business, that's how we look at it. And I jokingly always want to compare it to my gaming experience, where gaming consoles, where PlayStation and Xbox, when you buy the hardware, you know most of the console makers make a loss on selling you the hardware. But what they make money is giving you the titles and now engaging with you, and Xbox is selling you all kinds of subscription. So gaming world has been doing device plus services and making LTV on that for a much longer time, uh, ever since your PlayStation 1 days. But healthcare somehow was never able to understand this model. So it was in 2014, everybody said we are stupid to look at subscriptions and all of this. But it was exciting to see recently Amazon announced an exact similar model like us, and Apple also now launching the whole services bit with their Apple Watch and all the Apple Fit services. So coming back to the outcome, I want to talk about one very interesting outcome. So the insurance regulator has recently opened up the sandbox, where we are, by the way, have 9 products with various insurance companies. And like I said, the idea is that can we improve your health outcomes or reduce your health risk? And that is what is going to help underwrite your insurance coverage. And recently, one of our partners submitted their report to IRDA, where people on our platform, almost 71%, showed a better result as far as their health risk is concerned. So they were actually quantifiably able to reduce their health risk. And when you say health risk, this is actually making change in their biomarkers. And they were about 6% actually who were worst, or and there was about 11% odd who were slightly lower. So what has suddenly happened is that the insurance businesses, which were typically not aware of what is happening to the health of the population, suddenly exactly know that there are these 6% people who need extra attention and maybe a little more proactive approach. So that has been on the insurance side. Plus, there are several stories. I mean, with COVID especially, we launched Goki Vital, which is the first wearable which could track various parameters which could help with early detection. And we have implemented this in police forces, in municipal departments, and several organizations. And specific to police force, Nasik Police was one of the first police forces which had almost, I mean, 100% of their force on this, about 3,500 odd members. And once again, over there, we were able to show 22% people showing significant improvement in their health parameters. So the good news about our business is that because the input is data and what we measure is data and what we improve is data, the output is that much more measurable and tangible. Just to give you one number before I have Pradeep talk about this. Today, a single wearable, so a Goki smartwatch like a Vital, tracks about 25,000 data points a day per person. So imagine, we were living in a healthcare era where people don't even check their blood pressure once a year. And now we are having the ability to track 25,000 parameters per day. And as these wearables become more and more powerful, you could be literally wearing a diagnostic machine to your wrist, and between your phone and wearable, every part of your health can be measured. So I think and that is going to happen much sooner than we think.
Wow. And Pradeep, how about yourself? Any?
I think we are at an inflection point in healthcare industry today, right? So at Philips, our North Star is really quadruple aim. I think quadruple aim is nothing specific to Philips, but there's a very generic term used in the medical industry. What it really means is improved patient experience, better health outcomes, which Vishal spoke beautifully now, right? Improved staff experience. And of course, this has all to come at lower cost of care, right? I mean, the amount of money that is being spent in the Western worlds, Western economies on healthcare is mind boggling and is simply not sustainable, which means we need to embark on a solutions path. It is no more devices alone, no more standalone devices, right? The devices need to talk to each other. They need to be interoperable. They need to be configurable. And we can achieve all of this through digitization or digital transformation. So we are a firm believer in Philips of innovation through ecosystem innovation. We no more want to be the only innovator. We no more want to be called the innovator of the world, but we truly believe in enabling ecosystem innovation, right? So that is where we are heading towards. And the whole IoT has brought in a new perspective to things. Healthcare is rapidly entering the digital connected and I mean always on, right? I mean the 25,000 data points that Vishal spoke about is simply possible because it's always on. The IoT has enabled that, which has already reached a massive scale in the way the consumers live, the way we work, the way we communicate. I think this whole Corona thing, whole thing has kind of uh, increased the adoption of digital technologies in healthcare, which was very much behind many other industries, including automotive industry. But the Corona onset has kind of transformed this into a base probably none of us even dreamt about, right? So the digital architecture of hospitals is changing significantly. We are seeing adoption of a lot of wireless technologies, interoperability. There is a seamless shift of monitoring from hospital to home. That's Corona is a great example, right? So this transition will enable hugely meaningful innovations. continuous monitoring using wearables or implanted medical devices, right? Incorporating smart cameras for vital sign measurements, linked into contextual information, which is extremely important, right? Hyper personalization is going to happen, both from non medical consumer devices like what we speak about, through thermostats, through voice interfaces, through fitness trackers, smartphones, you name it. This is going to happen. This is what we see as the transformation that is happening in healthcare and through IoT when we see from a force perspective. So, in summary, digitalization, miniaturization, and integration using IoT is going to open and lead to a plethora of connected devices with multiple functions and leading to an abundance of data sets. So this is where we see from our lens sitting in Philips having both the personal health part, which is the preventive health, as well as the bigger and stuff which we do, be it with our X-ray, MR, or CT portfolio. This is how we see the things moving in the healthcare industry.
Thank you. I really like what both of you said, and Pradeep, I really liked what you said about building an ecosystem and how this is a trend. It's not just Philips, and it can't just be Philips as a kind of island or a walled garden that just exists in a silo. It's an ecosystem of different players, each of whom do different things. And Vishal, you hit the nail on the head when you said that we are moving, I think, to paraphrase your words, we're moving from kind of symptom driven diagnosis or symptom driven alerts to biomarker driven. And the fact that we have these devices and sensors which can actually monitor us in real time helps make that transition happen. And a lot of that thinking is what underpins this national health stack, and in particular the personal health records framework, which NDHM is now rolling out in India, which will make the flow of patient health data interoperable between different players. So I want to ask the two of you about your thoughts on this, and scope to how do you see your own products interfacing and talking to different systems, whether they in your case, Vishal, you mentioned doctors and physicians and caregivers. And in the case of Pradeep, I mean, maybe different devices talk to each other, and then they all talk to again somebody on the service side. I'd love to get your sense about this ecosystem and the NDHM.
So firstly, I think we are now seeing more and more devices and services getting integrated with GOQii. For example, we just announced a large partnership with Essentia, which is Panasonic Health. They have one of the top glucometers.
Okay.
Their glucometer now directly integrates with GOQii. And we are hoping that soon, whether it is Philips or any devices, today we already have a platform open for Google Fit, Fitbit, Garmin, Apple Watch. So the ultimate vision is that you could come with your data from anywhere and you could plug it into a GOQii ecosystem. And I think the good thing about NDHM and the PHR is that there is some amount of standardization coming, because right now the data is all over the place. And I believe that once you have a standardized way of bringing in the data, it will make a very big difference. I think the other thing over here, which I want to bring about, is that previously the use case of all these wearables and fitness trackers was what I call very casual use case. They were not really that serious. But suddenly, the data generated by these wearables have become very serious use case. And when I say serious use case, which means you are now sharing this data with your doctor who wants to remotely diagnose you. So whenever you do telemedicine, right now the doctor is blind. He's just telling you to open your mouth and tell me and describe your symptoms. But there is no way the doctor can know what is your current heart rate, or what's your blood pressure, or what has been your biomarkers for the last 7 days. So telemedicine without the stream of data is of no practical use, because doctors have to need data to take decisions. So what I really believe is that HR needs to have strict quality measures of this data, because what we are seeing is, for example, we at GOQii and Philips also invest a lot in compliance, in data quality, and making sure accuracy is important. We just got ISO standardization on our devices. We are now getting to apply to various regulatory bodies to make sure, because now that our data is suddenly getting into a hospital, or suddenly this data is now becoming a medical record,
Mm.
It's a medical record, it better be medical grade. So we are conducting clinical trials with various doctors, hospitals, and research institutions. And the good news is, and again, we have not published it, but I can just tell you some highlights that already most of our data parameters are at 97 to 98% accuracy. The only thing which is lower is blood pressure at 94%, and that too, it's not because of our device; it's just because of the manual method of taking blood pressure and any digital blood pressure. And the beauty is that this is going to get better and better and better. So hopefully, in the next few months or years, these devices will become 99% accurate. But I always want to qualify that wearables are currently what we term as screening devices. They are
Mm.
not the replacement to real medical device. So if your data is, let's say, you're showing you high blood pressure or high heart rate, then you go to the doctor and then you test using other medical devices. So right now that's where it is. But eventually, your wearable will be as good as any other professional medical device out there.
Right. Thanks, Vishal, for sharing your perspective, and glad to hear that the industry is moving the way we are also thinking at Philips. What is IoT? IoT is ultimately something which would enable an open, adaptive ecosystem of connected devices, right, that can collect, analyze, and exchange data to empower our patients and healthcare providers. This will help them to make timely and better informed decisions in order to improve the overall outcome of any activity that is being done. The way we see the progression in this is we had devices, now we have connected devices, they are getting smarter at the pace we all could never even think of. We will have system of systems that is also coming into picture through interoperability. And the final thing is all about open systems. That is what this whole PHR or
Yeah.
the systems that we want to get into. As Vishal rightly said, standardization is the need of the hour. We hear standards like HL7, right? That's a protocol where devices can speak, fire interfaces where backend systems can talk to each other. We see adoption of these things more and more increasingly. And we ourselves in our businesses have started sharing our data with third-party partners in the oral healthcare space like Henry Schein, Delta Dental, using fire interfaces, right? But this is not a widely adopted kind of standard yet, but I'm sure it is just a question of time. We all will get there. There
Mm-hmm.
is no use of data having the data yourself unless you can connect with data out there in the ecosystem, be it with partners like the insurance providers, the payers in the US ecosystem, what you call them, which we are also doing. Be it in Netherlands and the US, we are doing a similar thing that Vishal said with respect to our insurance companies. We share, what is generally advised is 2 minutes of brushing in the morning and 2 minutes of brushing in the evening. So, and as we all know in the Western world, dental insurance is extremely expensive. And unfortunately, the moment you end up with a dentist, everything becomes out of pocket because nothing is covered, right? So, the system that we are trying to, or the kind of platform that we are trying to build is to say, hey, I have an user who uses a Philips Sonicare product twice a day, 2 minutes. So this person is the good one. So why do you want to charge him that premium
Yeah.
insurance? Is
Yeah.
there a way to reduce that? So that is the kind of model we are trying to get into. I mean, we have seen this model in the automotive industry, right? Based on your driving habits, your automotive insurance either goes up or goes down. A similar model trying to experiment in health insurance, and I'm very glad that in India also this is something I heard from Vishal now. So that's really nice because the industry is going to move that way, right?
Yeah.
It is going to become outcome based.
Absolutely. Not just personalized healthcare, but also personalized insurance. That could be
Absolutely.
an interesting talk in its own right. I'd like to touch on something that both of you alluded to, and actually one of our other speakers last week, Dr. Nachikeet Moore, he raised the same topic, and he was mentioning how Sometimes, even when patients know that something is good for them or something is not good for them, for example, smoking, they will still do it, even though it's clear that doing this is bad for you and not doing this is also bad for you. So psychology plays a really important role. It's not enough to just have technology, but psychology is super important because we're talking about real people with real lives and real habits. So I know it's something which you both think about a lot. Pradeep, having this is a consumer mindset that you need to understand, which you're building for. And Vishal, you alluded to it with the gamification. So I'd love to understand how you both see this important psychological component of personalized care.
So first of all, I believe health is not a issue of data or access. The issue is motivation.
Hmm.
Most people know they should not be smoking or drinking, and everybody knows they should brush their teeth twice. They don't need to be educated about it. The reality is that they are not motivated to do it. At the same time, there are other people who are motivated to benefit from your laziness and your procrastination. The two examples I like to give you, who we believe are our biggest competition, is apps like YouTube or Netflix and OTT apps who want you to binge watch their shows, and food apps who
Hmm.
always want to get you a deal on getting pizzas and burgers. So while you are trying to be healthy and you are trying to do all the healthy things, you are constantly interrupted by whether it is the food companies or media companies trying to consume their junk content.
Yeah.
So since I come from a gaming background, first of all, we wanted to approach the entire challenge of health like a game. So, in the first place, we don't call our users patients or customers, they're called players because they are playing the game of life. And just to tell you how do we incentivize them, apart from having a coach, we have a reward mechanism for every action you do. So every healthy behavior gets rewarded in what we call Goki cash, which is our virtual currency. And then using this cash, you can buy various health products and services and also use this cash to hopefully at some point of time pay for your medical bill and so on. So the idea is to keep you in the loop of happiness and also create a mechanism where you are incentivized. And one last example I want to give you, for which we just won a large award in the digital diabetes space. So traditionally, India is the capital of diabetes, but the models around incentivization of diabetes has been to incentivize the doctor to say, please prescribe this medicine, get more people to test, and so on. What we are launching is what is called the India Diabetes Challenge, where we are telling people that please measure your HbA1c, upload it on Goki and on our health records, and then you are given 90 days to reduce your HbA1c. And for every point you reduce, we are going to reward you with digital gold from Paytm. So convert sugar into gold. That's
Wow.
the game. And we could not launch it this year because of COVID, so the launches got pushed to next year. But the beauty is we've partnered with labs, we've partnered with pharma companies, we've partnered with diagnostic companies. But the goal is now to tell the patient that, hey, dude, you have gold in your body. Now remove this sugar, and we'll convert it into a gold. So here is a great example of how Indians who are mad about gold can hopefully reduce their blood sugar at the same time.
That's amazing. And Pradeep, how do you think about this at Philips, the whole psychology?
Amazing. I think I mean, I really love the example that Vishal gave. I think incentivization, right? So that is the key thing. And it's all about building this good practices. Although we know it, it doesn't simply happen. So we have to do this motivational stuff through longer engagement. Engagement is the name of the game. And engagement, we believe, I mean, gaming is a great way of engaging people. Content is the king in this whole world of engagement, right? So you have to have content which is appealing, which is relevant. I mean, I don't like to read some generic article which comes and I get bored with it. As long as it can evince interest in me, that it can get personalized if the articles that are fed into me, the content cards that are fed into me are all very personalized and I can relate to it, then I will go by it. So this is about building practices in people, and this doesn't happen easily, right? So the whole coaching based approach, what Goki is also adopted, we are adopting similar things. It is nothing different. We have to build these great practices in people so that they get away from, the habits that they have and cultivate the better habits. And we have to ultimately incentivize people. Unfortunately, we have to do it, otherwise, people are not getting it. So, either through insurance premium cards or through subscription models that Vishal spoke about, we are also doing similar things in the devices where we operate under. Right. So, this is the way to go. And only one thing is personalization. Right. So, this is hyper personalization is something here to stay, and generic push of content or generic push of uh, any of the subscription models won't work. So people need something special. People think that they are special and they need something special. So AI is going to play a great role there. We need to understand what the individual needs. So this is the way to go.
So clearly, both of you have thought a lot about this and can kind of, Vishal, you've been doing this for a long time, since 2014 with Goki, and Pradeep similarly. And I think what you've said really shows that kind of long-term thinking. So in this iSpirit Healthathon, we have two competitions running, an ideathon and a hackathon, in which teams are coming up with either futuristic ideas in the ideathon for businesses or products, or actually hacking out prototypes on top of the PHR APIs in the hackathon. And I think teams from both these competitions will be really excited to hear if you have any ideas around what are some products or services you could build around this data that comes from either your own device or from some other devices, and it could be a product or app or service that you launch, or it could be something on the caregiver side. It could be something for the patient. Are there any things like that which you look at and you think, okay, this is something which I would tell these builders to kind of think about and work on?
So I would say that a lot of emphasis is going to go on predictive analytics on data. I think previously this data was never available. So, like I said, you are waiting for a symptom to present itself. And then when the symptom becomes very severe is when you go to a doctor. Normally people ignore symptoms. You are having a headache or you are having a pain. So the problem is that think of it like in the business terms, that you want to monitor your sales every day. You want to have weekly reviews with your team and you want to make quarterly plans, but when it comes to health, people are waiting to go bankrupt before they even look at the data. So
Yeah.
that is the challenge. So I would urge all the data modelers and hackathon folks out there to see how this data can correlate to the several conditions which are out there, and especially a lot of them are more unique to India. We know India has a problem with anemia, and I mean a lot of other things, right, which are a lot. So I think there is an entire business model around predictive analytics with data. The second thing is around giving the right, what I call trigger. So if you look at what happens in health is that suddenly January 1st comes and everybody gets excited. They want to join gyms and do marathons and whatever else, and then within a few weeks that whole thing is gone. So there is a peak and there is a valley, and the problem is, and what we are trying to grapple at Goki is that what do we do to get you out of that valley back to your peak? And that motivation and that trigger needs to be given constantly. And based on people's profiles, based on people's behavior, these triggers are different. So we need to figure out that what are the right triggers. So I think there's a lot of data which can go around that. And thirdly, I would say that what I'm really seeing today is we call this, and this is a very widely used term now, called the Internet of Health. So what is happening with this, with health care IoT devices, with platforms like NDHM and PHR and all of this? What is happening is we are creating a new kind of internet called the Internet of Health, which is populated with health data, which is going to work with its own protocols and its own systems. Now, on top of this data, there is a whole host of issues related to privacy, security. In the future, there was all these. Again, these are just theories of people trying to send drones to figure out people with different DNAs, and the whole science fiction around how your health data can be used and misused. So I would say that people need to go wild thinking of all kinds of use cases with health. Recently, I don't know if you saw, that there were people who were able to look at data from Strava and figure out where American military bases and covert bases are by just looking at the health data. So people are able to correlate so many things. Similarly, you could correlate a lot of this data and combine that with location, or if you can combine that with hospital data and say that, hey, this area is demonstrating this biomarkers and these hospitals are reporting this kind of patients. So a lot can happen when all these things start getting connected. So I would say that clearly, the hackers have a lot to think about.
Great. I think the last point, what Vishal said, that leads to positive use cases in population health management, right? So, knowing a population, how it is behaving, I mean, you can build a lot of care pathways based on that. My two challenges to the team, whoever is participating in this hackathon, is like, one is all of us have passports. We need to have a health passport. Right? So let's call it a health passport. The moment I insert my health passport into a kiosk, a doctor should know everything about my history. Like the immigration officer knows when did I come from US, when did I come from Europe, when did I check out of India. So similar thing needs to be available at the hands of the doctors when my health passport is introduced to a kiosk, right? So the problems with EMR, the problems with data interoperability, right? So all this can be solved once you have this. I mean, all these need to be solved to have this. So that would be, I would call this a personalized, a health passport of an individual. So if you can get that, that would be amazing. There are multiple issues with data security and privacy. I mean, that's a total topic of its own to discuss. The other thing is, everywhere you have kind of an index by which people measure, right? It could be, for example, let's take all of us have a credit scoring, right? I mean, India, it is not so prevalent, but in the Western economies, it is extremely prevalent. So can we have a health scoring? Can I have my oral health scoring? Can I have my, my beauty scoring or grooming scoring? So, and finally, an index of indexes saying this is my personal health index, saying, Pradeep, you are 6 on 10 on your personal health, something like that. So we need to develop such systems wherein this becomes easier for everybody to understand and easier for everybody not to repeat the same things. Every time you go to a new doctor, he will do all the tests once again, irrespective of the fact that you show him all the records. Why? People don't believe in others, and the economy of the way the medical systems work is also like that. People make money out of that. So I think the digital passport and a health index is a challenge that if people can work on it, I would be glad from Philip's side. I mean, we can think of partnerships with such people who come with such ideas as well. These are some things we are pursuing. Let me be honest, we are also pursuing. We haven't cracked that net. I mean, that not yet. But if people are interested, they can take up this challenge and come with ideas around this. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Fascinating. And we're talking right now about all the benefits and all the exciting possibilities that can be, brought about by technology. But it's worth, I think, spending some time talking about the challenges as well and the potential risks and drawbacks. And while, yes, of course, that could be its own session, would love to, ask the two of you, what are some things that one should be cognizant of, and how do you view the balancing of these risks with rewards? Starting maybe with Pradeep. I mean, on the one hand, you have we've seen IoT devices get hijacked by botnets and basically crash the internet in 2014. But on the other hand, you also have the increasing penetration of technology in people's lives, meaning that kids, for example, are looking at screens more often, or we have these devices which are so much more a part of our day-to-day life. And while this may be a little bit philosophical, it paraphrases one of the questions an audience member asked, which is, are there any things that one should be concerned about or just cognizant of when building these devices which integrate so closely with an individual's body and life? So, Pradeep, if you could start.
Yeah, I think this is a double-edged sword, right? So while it has its own advantages, that comes with its own challenges as well. I mean, the other one area, again, this is a digitization of the whole thing, is the mental health part of it, right? So
Yeah.
mindfulness versus mindlessness. So we need to be careful as to when we as companies trying to push these devices or push these applications through mobile phones or tablets or whatnot, be mindful on the experience that the user is going to have. So that is also an area we are investing within Philips about the whole mindfulness aspect of it, the mental health aspect of it. So people are not looking health as an individual siloed thing. I will care about my cardiac health. I will care about my bone. I will care about my sleep. No, people are thinking about systemic health. And mental health becomes a very important part of systemic health. So sleep and associated mental health is a great example where you can directly relate your sleep to your mental health. But there are large parameters which impact your mental health, other parameters other than sleep. So a company needs to be responsible about this as well. So if you ask me, do we care about it? We do care about it. Are we trying to make our solutions mindful of this, especially for kids? Yes, we do that. I mean, we have kids propositions in the oral healthcare space where we take care of it. I mean, it's a gamification platform, but we are very much aware of this. So if you ask, has this entered into a stage where it is catastrophic? Not yet, but mental health, mental behavior is something to care about.
And Vishal, how about you?
I think one thing I just want to kind of point out here is that people somehow think that just because now I have data with me, uh, the responsibility of making me fit is my doctors or my hospitals, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Reality is, in the framework we are actually talking about of preventive healthcare, you actually don't have to go to the doctor. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is that since we are going to tell you and give you early indications of the challenges you could face, the only thing you need to change is either your diet, your exercise, and things which you have control of. And only if things go really bad is when you have to go to a doctor or a hospital. So the system really can only work if people take responsibility of their own health. I think that is the underlying philosophy of data. The same thing is now happening with credit score. Now that people are aware of credit score, the only way to take care of your credit score is by having a healthy
Yeah.
credit system, paying your bills on time, and making sure you are not borrowing more than your limits. So same concept needs to be applied on health. That people, while I'm not saying you can't indulge, but you need to do things under control. And the ancient text of Ayurveda has already said that food is your best medicine, and what you need to just do is change your food so that you don't need the pharmaceutical medicine. So I think the concept of EHR is, I would say, 80% of the onus lies on the people themselves, so that the burden on the healthcare system is reduced. That is the whole idea and the principle behind it. And that's why I love NDHM and the vision which you have, which is consumer centric.
Mm.
People, because see, the enterprises could have adopted, EMRs have been there for donkeys of years, but
Yeah.
now there is no adoption.
Yeah.
Philip itself has so many systems, but the kind of making the hospitals and the doctors adopt it is not very easy. They already have very less time. The doctor patient ratio is too low. So doctor is giving you already a very small window, and in that window, if the doctor has to see your records of 2 years, the doctor just can't do it. So I think the reality is that this is not a magic pill for the healthcare industry. It is more responsibility on the consumers themselves. That's the way we look at it.
And thank you for sharing that. And lastly, I would like to just sort of invite the two of you to share what your vision is like for the future. Where do you think we'll be in, let's say, 10 years' time? How will this industry evolve, and what will it be the norm? Will everybody sort of have it, or how do you think that things will unfold from here? Vishal, maybe you could start.
I would say that in 10 years' time, between your phone, a wearable, and maybe an implant, 99% of all health data will be available online real time to everybody. And from 25,000, this would go to 25 million data points a day, maybe. So there is that much data.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, you just can't do so much with data. So there will be various services which will come in, which will be more specific for various ailments, and consumers who are going to live in this world of Internet of Health. The whole idea for them will be to remain healthy and get benefited. So there will be. So I'm not saying the entire population will adopt it. There is a good amount of population who can adopt it, and the vision which we have at Goki is a model of what we call longevity. I think the question really is that thanks to medication already, forget about India. India, the life expectancy 66, 67. Japan is 85. But in the next 10 years, given preventive healthcare and data, there is no reason why life expectancy in India cannot go to 80, 85.
Yeah.
When average human can start living over age of 100. I think it will be very, very easy for people to live longer. Now the question is that do you want to live longer, sitting on a bed and constantly
Mm.
being on medication and all these robots supporting you, or do you want to, even at the age of 100, run marathons and be healthier and take control? So I think medicine is going to make sure you live longer, but it's your adoption of these technologies which is going to make you healthier.
Okay, that's really fascinating. And Pradeep, how do you see it?
And as I said at the beginning, right, our North Star really is the quadruple aim,
Mm.
right? So we believe that we will have better patient experiences. Uh, we will have completely outcome driven health systems. It will no more be based on the number of MR scans or the CT scans, but it will be based on the outcome of each scan that you do. The staff experience has to be improved. I mean, we have seen in the COVID times how much the staff were under pressure, so that has to improve. Otherwise, any further burden on this part of the ecosystem is going to make it crumble. And lower cost of care with access to care in emerging economies like India or China, access to care is going to become important. While we all believe access to care is only for emerging economies, we see that even in the Western world, access to care was so important. You saw it in Spain, you saw it in Portugal, we saw it in the US, where access to care was so important. When through telemedicine and whatnot, that is going to get more and more easier. So the quadruple aim that we have in the medical industry, that will become a reality. That is what we believe within Philips. And all the things using data or through AI and ML and whatnot technologies you have is to enable that. So a mindset of a need seeker is what is essential. It is not a technology push. It should be rather what the consumers want and go and meet the needs of the consumers' aspirations. That is what the innovations is going to be. And as I said, we don't believe in siloed innovation. We believe completely in ecosystem-based innovation.
Thank you. I mean, that augurs so well for the future. I mean, I'm personally so excited, and there's so many takeaways which I have from this talk, and I'll just like to touch on some of them. And we spoke about biomarker-based, wellness-based care, where people will it'll be about not going to the doctor rather than going to the doctor when you have some physical symptoms, and that's the only time you seek an intervention. We spoke about personalized insurance. We spoke about the need to kind of incentivize and motivate consumers to look after themselves, exemplified really beautifully by Goki's concept of sugar to gold. Pradeep spoke about quadruple A and the need to kind of strive for excellence and outcomes and and the health passport, which is a really interesting concept. Maybe some of the builders can work on. So really, so much to take away. The Internet of Health, lots to digest, and I know that personally for me it was really, really exciting and full of learning, and I'm sure the audience felt similarly. So on behalf of everybody, at iSpirit, I'd like to thank the two of you so much for all of your time, insight, and generosity. So thank you so much, Vishal and Pradeep. Could we please have a very warm round of virtual applause for our speakers today? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next week, guys, we'll be taking a break for Diwali. So on that note, I'd also like to wish you, Vishal and Pradeep, a very happy Diwali in advance, and to all of you, our viewers. We hope everybody has a great festive season, and we will see you all at the finals of this competition on 22nd November. So please stay tuned to our Slack channel and Twitter, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you once again, Vishal and Pradeep. Bye.
Thank you.